And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, here back with arguably one of the biggest episodes of the year. Now, today I'm going through and doing my Eastern Conference season predictions. Next week it'll be the West. These episodes always throw up a lot of debate, a lot of contrasting opinions, but I look forward to them each year. Today's no different. Today I'm going to be going through the Eastern Conference, going from 15 till first, and adjudicating who I think will finish in each of these standings across the season there in the East. I'm certainly looking forward to getting into it. Guys, before I do so though, a big shout out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover. Both those networks continuing to showcase all my work here at the Daily Dribble, as well as a whole host of other content creators in and around Australia, New Zealand, the US, and Canada. Very appreciative of all their continued hard work and support of me here. Okay, guys, as I said, a big episode, the first today of a two-part series tackling the West next week. We're going from 15 to 1 today. Would love to hear what you guys think of this, what I got right, what I got wrong. Let me know on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. Would love to hear it. All right, without further ado, let's get into things, starting with the team I think will finish 15th this season is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I think this could be an extremely long year. If you're a Hornets fan, last year they finished at 21 and 61. I wouldn't be surprised if if they go worse than that. And now, sorry, I should have just mentioned prior to starting this, these kind of rankings are based purely on regular season standings. That's not who I think will win the title. It's not who into the playoffs, how teams will go. This is based purely on my predicted standings for the regular season. Just a little note there. Now, I don't think it's the Hornets have gotten that much worse. I just think every other team in the league has essentially got better. Their season hinges a lot on a healthy LaMelo Ball, and particularly Brandon Miller. Can he make that sophomore jump? In his rookie season, it was a breakout rookie campaign for him, averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. For me, this could be the year that they kind of look to make him the focal piece. If LaMelo struggles with form or more injuries, which, given his track record, is probably pretty likely, this could be the year that Miller kind of makes that step into the franchise piece. I think defensively, it's going to be a real worry for them. They do have some offensive-minded players that can get you a bucket. Defensively, they are very small, and their depth is below par. Now, outside of that starting five, which is average at best, the depth is poor as well. So if you're a Hornets fan, not a lot to look forward to this season. I predict 15th there for them. Going ahead to the 14th seed, I think will be the Brooklyn Nets. Now, it's absolutely crazy to think that only a couple of short seasons ago, they had a squad consisting of KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. What an incredible fall from grace that's been. Now, I think losing Mikal Bridges to the Knicks absolutely hurts them for this season. Looking forward, though, getting all those draft assets will certainly bode well, I believe. But for this season, in terms of wins and losses, it is a big L there. All the offensive responsibility this season now is going to come under Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson. Last season, their point differential was negative 2.9. Now, just with the way their roster's constructed, I think they'll be close to negative 8 this season, which, if you're in that mark, you're going to be pretty low down the standings. And as I said, 14th there for the Nets. A big question for mine comes to whether Ben Simmons is actually going to provide anything. Reports are coming out saying this is the best he's looked in quite a few years. Seeing is believing, though. Law of averages would say that he's not going to provide a lot, but I would be more than happy to be proven wrong there. As a Nets fan, I hope you enjoy losing. I'm sure you're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more of it this season and probably for the next 2 or 3. But hopefully with the moves that have been made, getting these draft assets, kind of stocking the war chest there, hopefully it bodes well for you in the next 5 to 10 years. But embrace losing at the moment. Up to 13th, I had the Toronto Raptors. Now, unfortunately for them, they're a team that finds themselves in that horrible, mediocre position. At 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, Scotty Barnes is the man on this team. There's no if, buts, or maybes about it. Alongside RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, there's not really a lot else on this roster to be excited for. They've got some pretty plucky players, I think, but they're not good enough, I don't think, to get the wins against some of these heavy hitters in both the East and Western conferences. Now, I think Grady Dick, he had a solid rookie campaign as well. Be hoping for a good leap from him. But yeah, I just don't think they have enough talent to compete this year. So another long year in Toronto. I applauded them last year for making that move, getting rid of OG, moving on from Siakam. They have embraced the rebuild. But the backside of that is you've got to also embrace losing at the minute. And I think they're another team that's going to suffer quite a lot of losses this year. Toronto are my 13th seed. Going up to 12th, I had the Washington Wizards. Now, they made some pretty big moves this offseason, retooled their lineup, their starting lineup in particular, quite a lot. And to be honest, I think their starting five is actually quite solid. With a starting five consisting of Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Sarr, and Jonas Valanciunas, that is pretty tidy, and I think we'll get you a few wins. With a couple of the young players they have in that roster as well, Bub Carrington, Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly, there's enough to actually like. They're not going to be a pushover. Now, if the number 2 pick there, Alex Sarr, comes off his time in the NBL with the Perth Wildcats, if he can pop off, they could be pushing towards a playing spot. I just think this season, with the way the East is situated, there's going to be a bit of a logjam for teams 9 to 12. So there's certainly an opportunity there for them. I see them at this stage down the lower side of that, hence my 12th prediction. The only worry, though, is scoring. I think that's going to be a bit of a worry for this starting lineup, given that Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole are both pretty streaky players. If they're not firing, you're asking a lot of these other guys, Valanciunas, Brogdon, the rookie there, Alex Sarr, to do the heavy lifting. But all things considered, I think this is the best roster they've had in the last few seasons. And, I've put them 12th, but don't be surprised to see them as a sneaky playing team if things break right for them. So, yeah, excited to see how they go, which is odd, something I haven't said in the last couple of seasons about the Wizards, but yeah, looking forward to it. Up ahead to my 11th seed is the Detroit Pistons. Now, there's something I quite like about this squad. They've got young players that are only continuing to get better there in the Motor City. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson. That's quite a nice, tidy young core they've got, complemented by the players that they recruited in the offseason, which I think they did a tremendous job of. Malik Beasley, Simone Fontecchio, Paul Reed, Tim Hardaway Jr. These aren't exactly players that are going to leap off the page, but they're going to put in a shift and they're going to bring some much-needed depth and experience to this roster. Bringing back Tobias Harris is also a really nice piece of business. Last season for Philly, he averaged 17 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists, and just brings another scoring punch to complement Cade Cunningham, takes a little bit of the weight off his shoulders. Now, at this stage, I have them just missing out on the plane, somewhat like the Wizards, but they're a team that I wouldn't be surprised if they make the plane and are kind of pushing towards a playoff spot. It depends. They're going to go as far as Cade takes them. If he makes another leap this season, they are well within striking distance. So, yeah, another team I'm quite looking forward to seeing there in Detroit. Guys, before we enter the top 10, just have a few quick words from my new sponsor, Kamikaze Energy. Hey guys, Nick here from the Daily Dribble podcast. I wanted to share a couple of quick words about my new sponsor, Kamikaze Energy. These guys are at the front leading the way in sports energy drinks. Lately, I've been trying to put in a bit of work on the running front, trying to train again for another marathon. But coming out of winter into spring, really been lacking a little bit of motivation lately. I needed that extra energy hit. And that's where Kamikaze Energy come into play. These guys providing B3, B6, B12 energy, or vitamins, should I say, with 0 carbs and sugar. Now, a great source of electrolytes. This is sure to help fuel your next, whether it be run, podcast, or just day-to-day life. These guys are helping take me to the next level. If you guys want to level up as well, be sure to check out the link in all of my bios there, all the social media channels. Go to the Kamikaze Energy link, and you can get 15% off your next order using my code there, KamiDribbler. Guys, I certainly attest to the fact that my production and output just in life lately has gone up since getting these guys on board and trying the products for myself. I implore you guys to do the same. You will certainly not regret it. Let Kamikaze fuel your next adventure. You don't need wings when you have Kamikaze Energy. Okay, guys, welcome back. Heading into the top 10 now. I've got the Chicago Bulls in at 10th. Now, the Bulls have a lot of questions hanging over them going into this season. Will Josh Giddey take the next step and, kind of flourish in a new location there after moving from OKC? Will Zach LaVine be sticking around? Is Lonzo Ball going to actually be an effective NBA player on his return? All big points that I think will greatly impact on how their season goes. Now, losing Caruso certainly hurts them as well on the defensive end. I just, I'm not sure. This is such a funny team at the moment. I think with the improvements that Kobe White, Pat Williams, Ayo Dosunmu made, they should be in a good enough position to clinch a play-in spot just. But I don't think they're good enough to go any higher than this, really. LaVine averaged 19.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists last season. The 5 seasons prior to that, though, he was averaging between 23.7 points and 27.4 points per game. Now, I think for the Bulls to be any better than 10th, they are the levels that LaVine needs to get back to. Otherwise, I think they're just going to be playing fodder once again. That being said, I have no doubt that Josh Giddey and Lonzo Ball will be putting him in the right positions to succeed and hit these marks. As I said, they're going to have a big job on their hands to be any better than a 10th seed. So, yeah, fascinating to see which way they go. To be honest, LaVine could well be on the move. They could look to move on from Vooch and embrace a rebuild focused around Giddey, Williams, Dosunmu, Kobe White, players like that. Or maybe they'll surprise us and actually, push towards a playoff spot. Interesting stuff, nevertheless, there in the Windy City. Up to my 9th seed, I had the Atlanta Hawks. Big off-season move was absolutely parting from DeJounte Murray and bringing in Larry Nance Jr. and Dyson Daniels. This should hopefully free up Trae Young to continue his ascent in the NBA hierarchy. He had a massive year last year, averaging 25.7 points, 3 rebounds, and nearly 11 assists per game. Certainly don't be surprised as he's going to take on a bigger workload if all these numbers go up next season. The number 1 pick, Zachary Reicher. Fascinating piece. Probably one of the least talked about number 1 picks in recent memory. But if he can have an immediate impact, this Hawks team will be an interesting watch as well. I think their big swing pieces are Bogdan Bogdanovic and Jalen Johnson. I spoke about him a little bit last week on my must-watch or must-have fantasy players. Check that one out if you haven't already. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on YouTube. Really a good insight into some players that I think are going to pop off. And Johnson is one of them. Have them in the play-in mix at the moment. They're 9th. I wouldn't be surprised if they miss out on the play-in altogether, or even if they kind of just sneak into a playoff spot. They're a real kind of Jekyll and Hyde team, but I think Trae Young is going to be must-watch TV this year. And as I said, if those numbers, I could see them going up to 28 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists per game. Thus is how impactful he is on this team. So certainly a player to watch out for there. Into the 8th seed, I had the Miami Heat, a team I've had very little faith in anymore. Now, the Heat normally dial it up during the playoffs, but I just don't think that's the case anymore, to be fair. I think they're going to be really, really lucky to make the playoffs. And again, another team, I wouldn't be surprised if they miss out at all. And to be fair, I almost see them as a playing team. probably giving them overs a little bit here just for almost namesake. I almost have more faith in the Wizards and Pistons to make the playoffs than I do the Heat. And I feel like that's going to get a lot of backlash, that comment. But yeah, just given how the last couple of seasons have gone, I have lost quite a bit of faith in the Heat. They made minimal to no moves this offseason. They just feel very stagnant. I spoke a few weeks ago, I think the need for Jimmy to probably average 25 points per game if they're to be a threat or to be effective on the offensive end. But I just think they're really suspectable. There you go. I've had a shocker there on both ends of the floor. Bam's elite on defense, probably the front runner for DPOY up there with Wembanyama. But outside of that, there's very little support on the defensive end. And offensively, they really lack that consistent number one guy. Jimmy probably needs to be it. Bam will chip in. Rozier's hit and miss. Tyler Hero's streaky. Giving them 8th again, just due to Heat culture, essentially. But wouldn't be surprised to see them miss out on the playoffs altogether. Miami Heat 8th. Up into the top half, number 7, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Cavs seem to be that team that is talented, but I don't think truly good enough to compete at the moment. They still feel just a piece away. Now, I think there's a caveat on that. If Evan Mobley goes bananas, becomes that 3rd star, which is certainly a possibility, their ceiling's higher. But with the way the roster is currently constructed and how they're performing, they're just not good enough to compete. Donovan Mitchell, I think, for them to be a real chance this year, pushing higher up the standings in 7th, he needs to be playing at an MVP level. At nearly 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists last season, he probably wasn't too far away from being at that level, to be fair. Now, after shooting 41% across the 2021-2022 season and 35% the most recent 2 seasons, they need to get Max Strus back fit and firing as well. If they can get him at a 40% or better shooter, that's a huge bonus for them. With the way the East is currently going as well, with teams like I mentioned, the Wizards, Detroit, getting better, this kind of feels like their last crack at having a real good shot at being a title-winning team, I think. Especially if these rumblings continue of Donovan Mitchell being on the move. They've settled for now, but if they have a poor start to the season, don't be surprised to hear those rumors ramp up once again, whether it be Mitchell or maybe Garland. But for me, this kind of feels like their last chance to have a good crack at it before the rest of the East continues to get better. Up into 6th, the Orlando Magic. Now, this is a team that's been one of the more pleasant surprises over the last season or two. They're only continuing to get better as well. They made that big off-season move to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope there from the Denver Nuggets. Just adds another really consistent 3-point shooter and another dog-like defender to a team that already had the league's best defense. I think complemented by those young stars in Wagner, Suggs, Karl-Anthony, they now have enough depth as well to avoid capitulation should an injury or two occur, which is massive. The big piece, though, is Paolo Banchero. He's the guy. He's the franchise piece, and somewhat like I spoke about Cade Cunningham a little bit earlier, this team will go as far as Banchero takes them. He averaged 22.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 5.5 assists last season. He's well and truly on track, especially with his performances in the playoffs, to become a bona fide superstar within the league. Now, all the talk in this kind of phase of the NBA at the moment is around Luka, Anthony Edwards, players like that. They're getting all the headlines. Maybe it's because, Orlando aren't the sexiest of teams. They haven't been that successful in recent times. They don't receive a lot of media attention. People are probably just sleeping a little bit on how good Banchero is. And if things go the way I think they will in my mind, this is going to be a breakout year for him. Don't be surprised to see him in a top 5 to 10 kind of MVP voting. Again, another team, if things go like that, if Banchero takes that step, I reckon this will look pretty likely that I've sold them short in 6th there. So, yeah, watch out for the Orlando Magic this season. Up into 5th, the Indiana Pacers. Now, they continue to make strides in the East there at the moment. I really like their squad and some of the young players that they have. I just don't really... I can't envision a way at the moment that they go any higher than 5th, given how talented that top of the East is. But they're a hungry team. I think they're going to be a formidable out if they make the playoffs, which I believe they will. Don't sleep on them. If you're a long-time listener of the show, you know how much I love Tyrese Haliburton. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists last season. He's one of the premier point guards within the league. Now, injuries certainly hampered him in the latter stages of the regular season and into the playoffs there. Hamstring troubles, back spasms. It derailed what looked like one of the, arguably a top 5 MVP level season, the way he was going. But if he can get his health back, fit and firing the way he was in the first half of the season, he's lights out. He's cash money, absolute stud. Accompanied by Pascal Siakam there and a rejuvenated Miles Turner. That's a pretty formidable big 3 they've got in their hands. I love TJ McConnell as well. Him coming off the bench, he's, for my eyes, still one of the more underrated players within the league. But for that being said, they need to go any better than 5th. They need huge growth out of Aaron Naismith, Andrew Nembhard, Obi Toppin, Isaiah Jackson. That's going to be the only way I think that they go higher than 5th and potentially deep in the playoffs. Big strides out of those guys. Again, somewhat like the Cavs, they feel just that little piece away from being a genuine threat in the East, despite making the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I think the teams above them have certainly got better, whereas they've just kind of plateaued from last season. So, interested to see how they go. Nevertheless, have them in the top 5. Moving ahead to 4th, I had the Milwaukee Bucks. A team I think that many people are sleeping on after their disappointing campaign last time around, getting bumped out by the aforementioned Pacers in the playoffs. Yet they still have 2 of the best players in the world on their team in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think the signings of Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr. in particular really helped their push back towards playoff and championship glory. But Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, I think, are the pieces that are going to have to step up and show not only good levels of health, but also consistency on their on-court performances. But don't sleep on them. As I said, the Bucks are still good enough to contend. I think if you've got Dame and Giannis on your squad, you've got a chance. I don't think last year was an accurate representation of how good their squad and roster is. But they are going to be very, very formidable this season. That being said, given where their core's at, with it starting to age considerably, I think, again, this is probably one of their last chances to be a genuine championship contending team. So I think they'll go pedal to the metal, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get there. The Bucks in 4th for the regular season, though. Up into my predicted 3rd seed, I had the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers have been a team that they might have formed one of the most formidable big 3s in recent memory. With Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George, that's about as good as it gets. I think they've done a tremendous job of building out the rest of that roster around them. I was looking pretty bleak there given the kind of financial situation and the players on the market. But adding Caleb Martin from the Heat, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, that's a tremendous supporting cast. And when you've got that big 3 that they do, that's all you need. Really serviceable role players that are going to play hard every single night, which these guys will. They each add their kind of own little flair to things. Eric Gordon hitting the 3s, Reggie Jackson being able to handle the rock, Andre Drummond eating up boards. They kind of got a little bit of everything, which really well done to the front office there. The only reason that I probably didn't have them in the top 2 is the fact that I think both George and Embiid in particular will rest or miss time throughout the season. And they're kind of a team I don't think that's going to mind where they finish. As long as everyone's fit and healthy for the playoffs, they will be backing themselves in. Tyrese Maxey, who I mentioned a moment ago, I think is the big piece though. Last year averaged 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. I really hope that by bringing in Paul George, it doesn't hurt his growth. He'll be 24 in November. He's just on track for big things. As I said, 26, 4 and 6. That's huge. And he is only continuing to get better. If he levels up once again this season, Philly have the makings of a title-winning team. And bringing in George, that's kind of what they expect. Into the top 2. I had the Boston Celtics. The reigning champs are essentially unchanged coming into this season, barring adding Lonnie Walker there. For me, they kind of feel like a team like Philly that will... It doesn't really matter where they end up in the regular season. They're in good shape to go back-to-back. Again, off the back of winning finals MVP there, Jaylen Brown. The question that I've been hearing more and more heading into the start of the season, once again, is who is that number 1 guy? A question I think we'll probably both, or that everyone will debate until one of them retires or one of them's moved on. A likely chance that Kristaps Porzingis will miss quite a bit of time due to injury. Underwent foot surgery in June there. But I think with Al Horford, Luke Cornett, and Xavier Tillman, they're quite well poised to deal with this, especially throughout the regular season. No real worries here for me. The Celtics are going to be a good team once again. Deservedly, at this stage, the betting pick to go back-to-back for the championship. But, again, I don't think they'll push too hard for the 1 seed, hence I didn't have them there. The team that I think will push very, very hard for the 1 seed is the New York Knicks. Now, what a week it's been for the Knicks. Certainly the biggest piece of news coming out of the Big Apple is the signing of Karl-Anthony Towns. They received him in a deal that sent Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Just huge. I won't go into it too in-depthly, but it's one of the more fascinating trades in recent memory, I think, because if you ask fans of both the Knicks and the Wolves, a lot of people are saying it's a plus for both teams. A lot of people saying it's a negative for both teams. So really depends on how you sit there. Disappointing to see the Villanova boys end before it even really began. But that starting 5 of Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be electric. You would envision that once Mitchell Robinson's healthy, Josh Hart will go back to the bench. Cat will slide across to the power forward. Robinson plays at centre. Offensively, I just think they're going to be a juggernaut. I really worry on the defensive end, though. I probably don't think that you can play Cat as a 5. Maybe you get away with it in the regular season. But in the playoffs, I think they'll get found out if they go that route. Matching it up with Embiid, Porzingis, players like that, I think he's going to struggle. But in terms of the regular season, I've got them as the number 1 seed. I think they're going to stockpile the wins. As we all know, Tom Thibodeau is going to absolutely gas these players every single night. They're going to be playing the starters 40-plus minutes, you would assume, just given the way that Tibbs does play players. Fascinating little point, though. I'd love to hear from you guys. Was going for Cat the right move? It was, as I said, very mixed reports. I don't know if it necessarily was. I would have liked to have seen how they went with Randall coming back in. I think losing DiVincenzo is a massive piece. Time will tell, though, how it plays out. But I think doing it is going to help them clinch the number 1 seed, which would be fantastic for the Knicks. Again, I don't think teams like Philly and Boston are going to push too hard for it, whereas I think the Knicks will. And if they do, good for them. Go get it. It'd be fun to see New York at the top of the standings once more. It's been a long time. Guys, there you have it. There is my 15-1 predictions for the Eastern Conference. To recap that, My predicted standings in the East, I had as the 15th seed the Hornets, 14th the Nets, 13th the Raptors, 12th the Wizards, 11th the Pistons, 10th the Bulls, 9th the Hawks, 8th the Miami Heat, 7th the Cavs, 6th the Orlando Magic, number 5 the Indiana Pacers, 4 the Milwaukee Bucks, number 3 the Philadelphia 76ers, number 2 the Boston Celtics, and my predicted number 1 seed for next season in the Eastern Conference is the New York Knicks. Guys, let me know what you thought, what I got right, what I got wrong. Let me know. Fascinating episodes to do these ones. I absolutely love it, guys. Next week, I'll be tackling the West. Those ones are always even more hotly contested. I'm sure I'm going to upset a lot of people as I go into that one. But yeah, would love to hear from you guys. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to the show, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watching this one on YouTube. Subscribe to get that one as soon as it drops. I'm certainly looking forward to it. We're into October. We are a couple of weeks away from NBA basketball officially returning. So enjoy the next couple of weeks of downtime. Things are about to ramp up very, very heavily, and I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people. Cannot wait. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Enjoy this one. Be sure to tune into the Western Conference predictions next week. Until then, remember, either be good or be good at it. Take care, guys.